Hi everybody, this is Buzz. I'm going to be telling you a riveting story about trauma. And I'd like, before I get started, to please understand that I'm new on YouTube and I need your help. So please, if you could subscribe and get me started, it'd be a great thing. I'm going to be doing a lot of videos about mood disorders and things like that. But today I'm going to talk to you about a riveting story about trauma, as I was saying. I had a client came to my office one time. He was a police officer. And police officer, it's a very dangerous job. And quite often, before ambulances get to the scene, the police officers quite often get there first. And so they see almost every kind of trauma you think you would probably deal with as a police officer. People suddenly dying. They may go to crime scenes where they're the first person on the scene. So I would think that so when a police officer came in to see me, most of what I think that there would be more or less fear, because police officers pull people over. They don't know what's in that car. I mean, is a person brandishing a gun? I mean, is this going to be the last day of their life? They have no idea. They go through that every day. So you would think things like trauma or fear and all, that would be a very real thing to them. And it's part of the job after a while, which is hard to believe. But in this particular case, the police officer came to me because the trauma was just a little too real for him. It happened one Saturday night. He was on duty and he got a call about a traffic accident, and he was very close. He was within a minute or two where the accident was, and it was dark that night. It was probably about 11 p.m. It had been raining, and when the rain happens, quite often the clouds are so thick that it's completely dark outside. And the accident happened on the road where there was very little lighting. And the individuals that were involved in this car wreck, and it was only one car, they were from out of town. And they were young people. They were in their early 20s. And it's apparent from the accident scene that these three guys were traveling at a high rate of speed on a very slick highway. And they got into a corner, to a bend, that they just didn't see coming. They didn't know it was coming because they're not familiar with the road, apparently. Car went off the road. It first struck a fence and then it crashed into a pole. So when the police officer arrived, there were a couple things he noticed. First of all, when the car crashed into the tree, it had hit on the driver's side. And so the whole driver's was caved in on that side, and the person driving the car was he was killed instantly. The guy in the back seat did not have a seatbelt on. He apparently, when the contact happened, he hit his head on the roof. He was unconscious, barely breathing when the police officer showed up. And he eventually died later at the hospital. The third individual, who was in the front passenger side, he went through the windshield. And so it was very black. So after the police officer saw the two people in the car, he saw the guy in the back. He called for an ambulance, which was basically almost on the way anyway. And he went looking for the guy who went through the windshield. And he had his little light, and it was extremely dark. He had no light except for the light on his flashlight. And as he's flashing around, he doesn't see anything. And as he's walking, all of a sudden he stepped in something, and he didn't know what it was. Slowly he puts the light down onto the ground, and he noticed that he had stepped on someone's brains. So when the guy had crashed through the windshield, it basically cracked his skull open, and the brain matter leaked out of his brain, and the police officer tread on that, and that did him in. He thought he could handle it. But every night he started having dreams and every night about it. And he also had trouble sleeping. And he never had trouble sleeping before. No matter what he experienced, he was always able to shake it off. But in this particular case, he wasn't able to. So he made an appointment with me. And he came in and he told his story. Look, it doesn't matter how big or how strong you are. It doesn't matter whether you're a man's man or whatever you might be. But there are certain things, I guess, in life that we're just not meant to see. And I imagine some people that are listening to this, maybe you've gone through some things that are on your mind that happened in your life that maybe you were not meant to see. And maybe it's, in some cases, it may have radically affected your life. It may have determined who you are today. And you've never been able to talk about it with someone. You've never been able to wrestle with it about what type of meaning this has for you and how it's impacted your life. Well, one of the things that people do, they come to counseling for these types. This is why people have counseling. Because it's, the average person will just tell you, well, just forget about it. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. That's easy for them to say. But when you go through a trauma, you need to have people who understand trauma and how that works and how it can affect your life. You can come back from that, but I don't think you can ever unsee things. Some people think you can, but you can't. So whether you have a little child or you have a full-grown adult, you would think that they would be strong enough to handle certain, but there's certain things that you can't unsee. Now, if I'm talking to somebody that's experiencing that, you might say, well, gee, I don't know what to do about that. Well, the first thing I think you need to do is, when you're ready, take it on. Take it on, talk about it. Get it out of your system. Let someone else, professional, handle that for you. Now, as a therapist, I do online counseling now, and I've helped a lot of people with various things. During my career, I met like over 5,000 people during my career, 22 years. And I've handled just about every human problem. I don't think everything from, rapes, murders, all kinds of sexual problems, addictions, obsessions, all kinds of mood disorders. I've dealt with all of that stuff. So obviously, now I still might get shocked by your story, and I may say to you, wow, I've never heard that before. That happens quite a bit because everybody experiences something a little different, but some of the feelings are the same. And that's what we can deal with. We can deal with the commonality of the feelings that situation provides you. And that's where we can give you help. So obviously, if you're interested, if you want to get help, on my channel, you'll notice a way to get a hold of me. I work online. I can work through WhatsApp. I can work through Facebook Messenger, whatever, and I can work through Zoom, whichever is most comfortable for you. It seems lately, particularly if you're not in the Philippines where I'm living, you'll probably deal more with WhatsApp, and I'd be happy to help you with that. Look, you don't have to suffer anymore. You don't want to have to continue to hold on to those memories of life, because it chips away at your life a little bit. It takes time out of your life to be focused on things that really you need to find a way to move on from. Let me know if I can help you. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to ask. I handle, right now, I'm just getting started. Obviously, I can handle any. If you want to make a comment about it, that's fine. But I think in some cases, you may not want to talk about it, in a comment section. A lot of people, what they do is they reach me at my email address, helpbybuzz12@gmail.com. And I'll have that in there. And you could get on and tell me, if you want to come on and tell me your story, I'd be happy to look at it. I'd be happy to comment on it. Even if you don't necessarily want to engage me as a counselor, that's fine. I'll still read your story, and I will try to give you some help if I can. In the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, and we'll see you next time.